The house felt different the moment Emily Carter stepped inside. It was not loud. It was not messy. It was not strange in any clear way. It was just off. Emily had lived in that house in Ohio for 8 years. She knew the way it breathed. She knew how the wood floors creaked in the afternoon sun and how the refrigerator hummed when the kitchen was quiet. But that day, when she closed the front door behind her, something in the air felt tight, like the moment before a summer storm. Jake's car was in the driveway. His dark blue Honda was hard to miss. That meant he was home from college and upstairs, most likely in his room. Michael had texted her earlier saying he would be late at work in Columbus, a long meeting. He had sounded distracted in the message, but she had not thought much of it at the time. Emily slipped off her shoes and walked toward the kitchen. She placed her purse on the counter and called out gently, "Jake." No answer. She poured herself a glass of water, trying to ignore the small knot forming in her stomach. Maybe he was wearing headphones. Maybe he was asleep. It was summer break. 19-year-olds kept strange hours. Then she heard it. A soft thud from upstairs. Like someone bumping into furniture. She froze. A second sound followed. A whisper, low, quick, not clear enough to understand. Her heart began to beat faster. "Kay?" She called again, louder this time. Still nothing. Emily walked toward the staircase. Step felt heavier than it should have. She told herself she was being dramatic. There were simple reasons for every sound. Old houses made noise. People dropped things. But when she reached the top of the stairs, she noticed Jake's bedroom door was slightly open. That alone was unusual. Jake valued privacy. Since coming home from college, he had changed. He was quieter, guarded. He locked his door even when he went downstairs for 5 minutes. Emily had respected that. He was growing up. He deserved space. Now the door was not just unlocked. It was open. A thin line of light spilled into the hallway. Emily stepped closer. She could hear breathing. Not heavy, not loud, just close. Her mind moved quickly, searching for harmless explanations. Maybe Jake had a friend over. Maybe he was on a video call. But something told her that was not it. She stood in front of the door for a full 3 seconds. She should have knocked. She knew that later. But in that moment, instinct took over. She pushed the door open. Time slowed. Michael stood near the window, his back partly turned, his hands still resting in the air as if he had just pulled it. Away from someone, and that someone was Rachel. Rachel Morgan. Emily's friend. Rachel stood close to Michael. Too close. Her blouse slightly wrinkled. Her hair not as neat as usual. Her face pale. Jake was sitting on the edge of his bed, staring at both of them like he had just watched a car crash. For a second, no one moved. Emily's brain struggled to connect the picture in front of her. Her husband, her friend, her stepson's room. Then she saw it clearly. Jake had walked in first. He must have come upstairs unexpectedly. Maybe he had forgotten something. Maybe he had heard a sound. And he had seen his father and Rachel together in a way no son should ever see. Emily's chest tightened so fast. It felt like the air had been pulled from the room. Michael turned fully toward her. His face drained of color. Emily, the word sounded small. Weak. Rachel stepped back quickly, almost stumbling against the desk. "It's not what it looks like," she said. But even she did not believe her own voice. Jake stood up slowly. His eyes were red. Not from crying, from shock. I didn't know you were home," Jake muttered, looking at Emily instead of his father. That sentence said everything. Emily felt something inside her break quietly. Not loud, not dramatic, just a clean snap. Michael walked toward her. "Emily, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" "Explain why he was in his son's bedroom with her best friend in the middle of the afternoon when he was supposed to be at work. Explain why Jake looked like he had lost respect for his own father in a single moment. Explain how long this had been happening." Emily could not speak. Her throat felt tight. Her hands felt cold. Rachel reached for her. Emily, I swear, Emily stepped back before Rachel could touch her. That hurt more than anything. Rachel had been in their home for birthdays, holidays, Thanksgiving dinners. She had brought wine and laughter and stories about her job in Cleveland. She had cried when her own marriage ended. Emily had held her hand and promised she would never be alone. Now she stood in Jake's room, close to Michael, looking guilty. Jake looked between all three adults, trapped in a scene he never wanted to be part of. I'm sorry, he said suddenly. Emily's head turned toward him. You have nothing to be sorry for, she whispered. Her voice surprised her. It was steady. Michael ran a hand through his hair. Emily, this isn't. We were just talking in a bedroom, with the door locked. In the middle of the day, Emily did not argue. She did not scream. She did not cry. She simply looked at her husband and realized she did not recognize him. The man in front of her was someone else, someone careless enough to risk everything, someone selfish enough to risk hurting his own son. Jake's voice broke the silence. I came up to grab my charger. I didn't know. He stopped talking. He didn't have to finish. Emily imagined him opening the door earlier, seeing something he could never unsee. Backing away, forgetting to lock the door again when he left in shock. That was why it had been open when she walked upstairs. If Jake had remembered to lock it again, she might have walked past. She might have gone back downstairs. She might have lived another few weeks or months in comfortable ignorance. Instead, she had seen the truth. Clear, sharp, undeniable. Michael tried again. It's not serious. It didn't mean anything. Rachel flinched at that. Emily noticed. So Rachel meant nothing. Or was that just another lie? Emily finally found her voice. How long? Michael hesitated. That was the answer. Look down at the floor. Jake turned away from his father completely. Emily nodded slowly, as if confirming something she had already known deep inside. The late meetings, the distance, the way Michael's phone had become private, had stopped reaching for her hand at night. It had not been her imagination. It had been this. Emily, Michael said softly, stepping closer. I love you. She looked at him carefully. Love did not look like this. Love did not stand in a son's bedroom with another woman. Love did not force a 19-year-old boy to carry the weight of a parent's betrayal. Rachel picked up her purse from the desk. I should go. Yes, she should. Emily moved aside without speaking. Rachel walked past her quickly, eyes fixed on the floor, and disappeared down the hallway. The front door closed downstairs. The sound echoed through the house. Now it was just the three of them. Emily, Michael, and Jake. A broken triangle. Reached for Emily's arm. She stepped away again. Don't, she said quietly. Jake cleared his throat. I'm going out. He grabbed his keys from the dresser. He avoided looking at his father. As he passed Emily, he paused for half a second, as if wanting to say something, but words failed him. The front door closed again. Now there were only two. The silence between Emily and Michael felt heavier than any argument. I was lonely. Michael began. Emily almost laughed. Lonely? They lived in the same house, slept in the same bed. If he was lonely, he had never said it. Or maybe he had in ways she did not hear. But loneliness was not an excuse. It was a conversation. This had been a secret. Michael's eyes filled with regret. I never meant for Jake to see. I never meant for you to find out like this. That was what hurt most. Not that it happened, but that he had planned to hide it. Emily realized something painful in that moment. He would have continued if the door had stayed locked. If Jake had not walked in, if she had knocked, the truth would have remained buried under polite dinners and quiet evenings. She felt tired. Suddenly, deeply tired. I can't do this right now, she said. Please, Michael whispered. But she turned and walked out of the room, down the stairs, into the living room. She stood there, staring at the family photos on the wall. smiling faces. Vacations in Toronto. Christmas mornings, Jake's high school graduation. Was all of it real? Or had the cracks been there all along? Upstairs, she could hear Michael moving slowly, not following her. Maybe he knew space was the only thing she would accept. Emily sat down on the couch and let the silence settle around her. Her mind replayed the image again and again. Michael. Near the window. Rachel, too close. Jake's shocked face. Her stepson had become the unwilling witness to his father's betrayal, and she had become the woman who opened the door. A simple action, a push of wood and brass, that was all it took to change everything. Outside, a car engine started. Jake leaving. Emily closed her eyes. If she had knocked, maybe they would have had time to fix their clothes, to straighten their faces, to pretend. But she hadn't knocked, and now pretending was no longer possible. Upstairs, the bedroom door slowly closed. But the truth stayed wide open. The days after that afternoon passed in a blur of silence, tension, and quiet heartbreak. Emily woke each morning feeling the weight of what she had seen pressing down on her chest. The house felt smaller, colder, almost foreign. Michael's presence in the guest room reminded her constantly that the man she had trusted for years was no longer the same. Jake was distant, quiet, but his eyes spoke volumes every time he looked at her. He had seen too much too soon and carried the shock in a way that made Emily ache for him, even while her own heart shattered. Michael tried to speak. He tried to explain himself in ways that sounded hollow to Emily. It meant nothing. He said, "It was just a mistake. I love you." But Emily had learned long ago that words alone could not repair what trust had broken. Actions mattered, and actions had been clear. He had chosen someone else over their family, and the choice had been deliberate. The betrayal was not an accident. It was a series of decisions that had slowly eroded the foundation of their marriage. Rachel's presence had vanished almost as quickly as it had appeared. No phone calls, no messages, no attempts to justify or explain. She had disappeared from their lives, leaving only the echo of her betrayal. The absence, however, did not heal anything. Instead, it left an emptiness, a void that seemed to make every step, every sound in the house heavier. Emily could feel it in the way the morning sunlight fell unevenly across the floors, in the way the air seemed to quiet at dinner, in the way Jake moved through the rooms, careful not to look directly at his father. One evening, Emily found Jake sitting alone on the back porch, the warm summer air brushing past him, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. She approached slowly, not wanting to startle him. He looked up, and for a moment, she saw a young man who had been forced to grow up overnight. His eyes were tired, wary, filled with something she had never seen in him before: disappointment. "None of this is your fault," Emily said softly, sitting beside him. Her voice was calm, steady, a contrast to the storm of emotions that churned inside her. Jake swallowed hard. "I should have said something when I found out," he whispered. He looked away, embarrassed, guilty, burdened. Emily shook her head. "You're a son, not a messenger," she said. "You didn't cause this. You didn't make anyone do anything. You were just there, and now we move forward." He nodded, but she could see the pain lingering behind his eyes. That moment reminded Emily of something essential. While a marriage could break, the bond between her and Jake could survive if nurtured with honesty and care. Michael tried to bridge the gap in the days that followed. He moved slowly, almost cautiously, back into shared spaces, attempting small gestures of reconciliation. He left a note with coffee one morning, another with an apology scribbled on a napkin. He tried to talk about what went wrong, why it had happened, how he could fix it. But Emily had learned that apologies alone could not undo the past. Trust was gone, and without it, no amount of sweet words could rebuild the life they had shared. Emily watched him one afternoon as he tried to engage Jake in conversation. Jake answered, but minimally. The younger man's posture, the tightness in his jaw, The avoidance of eye contact, all of it, spoke louder than any words. Emily understood then that some wounds were not just personal, they were familial. When one person betrayed the family, everyone suffered, even if they were only a witness. She realized that healing would take time, patience, and, most importantly, honesty. One night, Michael approached Emily after she had finished reading in the living room. He sat on the couch beside her and hesitated. "Can we fix this?" he asked quietly, almost vulnerably. Emily looked at him carefully, her eyes searching for the man she had married. She remembered the early days of their life together. The wedding in Toronto, the excitement of blending families, the long nights dreaming about the future. She remembered believing him, trusting him completely. But she also remembered the look in Jake's eyes that day, the shock, the hurt, the sense of betrayal that no parent should ever cause. "I don't know," Emily said honestly. It was the truth. Love without trust was fragile, like glass that could shatter at the slightest touch. Michael's lips trembled. He wanted her to say yes, to forgive, to move on, but she couldn't. Not yet. Not without understanding, not without time, not without boundaries. She had learned that sometimes courage was not about holding on, it was about letting go. Weeks passed and Emily made a decision. It was not sudden, was not dramatic. It was quiet, deliberate, and rooted in self-respect. She filed for separation. There were no shouting matches, no public displays of anger. She signed the papers at a lawyer's office in downtown Columbus with calm determination, knowing that this was the right step for herself and for Jake. Michael cried. The weight of his choices had finally come home. Rachel was gone from their lives, and Emily finally felt the space to breathe, to reclaim the part of herself she had lost while trying to maintain a marriage built on lies. Jake hugged her tightly before leaving for college again, and in that embrace, Emily felt a mix of sorrow and hope. "You're still my family," he whispered. "Always." Her own tears fell freely. "Always," she whispered back. That hug became a silent promise between them, that no matter what happened between adults, their bond would endure. Alone. In the house months later, Emily walked through rooms once filled with laughter and memories. Each step echoed, reminding her of the past and the choices that had brought her to this moment. The door that had been left unlocked that afternoon had revealed painful truths, yes, but it had also revealed her strength. It had shown her that even in the face of betrayal, she could choose dignity, courage, and freedom. Some nights she thought about what could have been. If she had knocked that day, perhaps she would have walked past, pretending not to see, continuing a lie. Perhaps the marriage could have limped along, sustained by half-truths and quiet resentments, but she had not knocked. She had chosen awareness, honesty, and the first step toward self-respect. And that choice, she realized, had changed her life forever. Emily began to rebuild slowly. She found solace in small routines, in reading on the porch, in baking with Jake during his brief visits home. She reconnected with old friends who supported her, who listened without judgment, who reminded her that life could still be beautiful even after heartbreak. She allowed herself to feel sadness, but she also allowed herself to hope, to dream again. Michael attempted contact once, tentatively, a few months after the separation. Emily listened. She nodded. She acknowledged him as the father of her stepson, but she did not allow herself to be swayed. She had learned that some people cannot change, and forgiveness does not always mean reunion. There was a difference between understanding and accepting, and she had to protect her own heart first. Emily noticed the subtle changes in herself over time. She walked taller, spoke more clearly, and made decisions without hesitation. She embraced her independence. She laughed again, softly at first, then more freely. And with every smile, every confident step, she reminded herself that she had survived the unthinkable and emerged stronger. She kept a journal, writing down memories, thoughts, and feelings, capturing both the pain and the growth. She revisited the day she had opened the door countless times in her mind, understanding more with each reflection. That single moment had been a turning point, a catalyst that forced her to confront reality, confront her emotions, and confront the truth about the people she loved. Months later, Jake returned for a weekend visit. The house felt warmer that day. He was older, more grounded, carrying his own experiences from college, yet still the same boy who had needed her guidance and protection. They shared meals, laughed at old stories, and for the first time in months, the house felt like home again. Emily realized that while her marriage might have ended, her bond with Jake remained unbroken. The house, once heavy with betrayal and silence, now held a different energy. It was no longer just a place of pain. It was a place of resilience, of growth, and of quiet hope. Emily understood that life did not have to mirror the mistakes of the past. She could create something new, built on honesty, self-respect, and love for those who truly mattered. One evening, as the sun set behind the trees, casting a golden light through the windows, Emily stood alone in the living room. She looked at the photographs of birthdays, holidays, and vacations. She smiled softly. The memories were hers. Choices were hers. The future was hers. She had survived heartbreak, betrayal, and the unthinkable. She had emerged not just unbroken, but stronger, wiser, and freer than she had ever been. And deep inside, she knew the truth. Some doors, once open, reveal not only pain, but also the strength to move forward, the courage to reclaim your life, and the power to love yourself again. That unlocked door, that moment of truth, had changed everything. In the end, it had given her a gift she never expected. It's freedom, clarity, and a life that was truly her own. Emily smiled, a full, genuine smile, as she whispered to herself, "I am free." The storm of betrayal had passed, leaving behind calm, quiet strength. And for the first time in a long time, Emily felt ready for whatever came next.